2 years ago, during the War of Annihilation, Peter Quill, also known as Star-Lord, and Richard Rider, also known as Nova, were seen relaxing amidst the chaos. Richard was awestruck by the sheer scale of the war, marveling at the beauty of the sky even as it was filled with ash and the remains of shattered life forms. Quill himself saw it as a beauty within the war that held meaning, much like the beauty of nature. Quill felt this was natural because space wars tend to escalate out of control, where life and death are locked within the same space. Richard was a bit surprised to hear those words come from Quill's mouth, because behind his slightly silly demeanor lay a bit of wisdom born from the wars they'd faced. Quill replied that he didn't really want to go back to his old self, and a little cynicism wasn't so bad for him either. Seeing Richard, who was now maturing into a man, Quill said this war would make him even tougher, so no one could ever again underestimate Nova as a lightweight Earth boy. Quill said this because they shared a similar fate. They'd both witnessed the destruction of Xandar, which left Richard as the sole remaining space cop. According to Quill, the Annihilation War is still relatively minor compared to what will happen if the abstracts, like eternity, death, and oblivion, get involved. Joking, Richard says that oblivion and death will come for him in a pitiful state, but before he can finish his sentence, they're suddenly attacked by the Annihilation Wave. Both immediately ran to avoid the attack, and in the midst of it, Quill emphasized that Richard must also run when it all comes for him. In the present, Thanos suddenly woke up and immediately choked Quill with all his might. At that time, Thanos was being held captive on Nowhere, which had become the Guardians of the Galaxy's base after he was previously killed by Drax. In that unstable state, Thanos unhesitatingly attacked the first beings he saw, the Guardians of the Galaxy, the very group that had actually saved him. Just as Quill was about to run out of breath, Rocket Raccoon arrived with a massive robot to stop Thanos. In a threatening tone, Rocket ordered Thanos to release Quill. He was equipped with a Rampart Arms Fade-Dick cannon, a cold fusion weapon with a 20-megawatt range capable of melting Thanos' face. Although Thanos wasn't fully conscious, Rocket knew Thanos could still understand him and didn't have enough strength to defeat the robot Rocket was piloting. Nevertheless, Rocket set the weapon's power to a quarter of its capacity, enough to incapacitate him, so they could reseal Thanos into the cryogenic pod and drop him into the gravity well. Upon hearing this, Thanos remained undeterred and continued to choke Quill. Consequently, Rocket threatened Thanos with something he feared: eternal life. Finally, Thanos grew afraid and released Quill without a second thought. After successfully stopping him, Rocket asked all the telepaths like Cosmo, Mantis, and Moondragon, saying, "Ladies, a little brain tickle?" Quickly, the three of them put Thanos to sleep with their telepathic powers until the situation was back under control. After that incident, Quill had no idea why Thanos had gone so crazy, but Rocket speculated that it happened because Thanos was allergic to life, and perhaps allergic to anything that brought him back, and maybe even death had grown tired of him. At the same time, Gamora, along with Groot and Jack Flag, detected a fleet of Kree and Shi'ar ships near the Fault. Gamora explained that the Fault had suddenly turned into a bug flark, as it was a portal created by the Great War that took place there. Quill looked a bit annoyed, thinking Gamora couldn't handle it, though in reality, Gamora herself didn't know the cause either. Just as Gamora was about to send a transmission to Quill, she suddenly received an emergency message from the Kree Empire's fleet. The message stated that the source of the disaster originated from the Universal Church of Truth, through its leader, Adam Magus, who had opened a portal to another universe. He did this through extreme means, moving planets filled with his fanatical followers and then detonating them near the Fault. This explosion wasn't merely physical destruction, but a biological signal and a surge of life energy. Medusa, Queen of the Inhumans and an ally of the Kree, sent an emergency transmission stating that the Joint Expeditionary Force was in grave danger and requesting immediate assistance. She emphasized that the situation at the Fault was already beyond the scope of normal military control. Meanwhile, figures such as Ronan the Accuser, Karnak, Maximus, and Crystal tried to understand what was actually happening. They realized that this is no ordinary phenomenon, but rather the result of super compressed matter and an overflowing alternate reality. The universe on the other side of the fault is teeming with life, and that pressure is now forcing it into the main reality. Meanwhile, Gladiator himself also reports that their shields are beginning to crumble, and monsters from the dark universe are starting to breach the ship's hull. Not only that, Gladiator also admits that these monsters are extremely difficult to defeat, because they are, by nature, creatures that do not understand the concept of death. Using his heat vision, Gladiator tries to burn the monsters, but unfortunately, his efforts yield absolutely no results. On the other hand, warriors like Hussar and Smasher are seen fighting the monsters with all their might. However, behind the scenes, Smasher kept complaining because he felt exhausted by all the battles, which he felt didn't match what was written on the Shar Imperial Guard recruitment poster. This minor complaint annoyed Hussar, who told Smasher that this was life as a Shar Imperial Guard, so he had to get used to it. What really frustrates Smasher isn't the exhausting battles, but the fact that the enemies they face are endless. Even after giving it their all, the monsters they're fighting can still stand their ground against them. Seeing this, Ronan immediately reports that the extrinsic entities from the Dark Universe are extremely difficult to kill. This caused Queen Medusa to panic because they had absolutely no way to fight the creatures that were about to wipe them out at that moment. Chaos spread everywhere as the monsters managed to breach the Imperial Kree's security system, which was struggling to handle them. Unbeknownst to them, the Silver Surfer was watching from afar, confirming that a stronger entity was about to join the battle. Meanwhile, aboard the Universal Church of Truth starship Eternal Sin, Quasar and Lord Marvell of the Cancerverse were seen discussing the attack they had launched. Quasar reported that Lord Marvell could watch their battle through the Jet Shogor mirrors arranged for him. Additionally, Quasar mentions that the natives of the main reality have assembled a significant fleet to oppose them, but they are on the brink of defeat. Hearing this, Lord Marvell appears quite pleased as they are the favored side in this war. It turns out Lord Marvell is invading the main reality because he wants to spread the influence of the many-angled ones into that reality. He wants to create a reality where the concept of death is unknown, just like the reality he inhabits at that time. Lord Marvell also senses far more ambiguous emotions from the main reality and feels they cannot allow death to persist. Before winning that battle, Quasar reported to Lord Marvel that they had found a location to perform the necropsy ritual that Adam Magus had previously failed to carry out. Lord Marvel regretted Adam Magus's failure because he had previously been unable to locate the Avatar of Death from that universe. Not only that, but Lord Marvel could also sense Lady Death's interference. In this case, she was spreading her influence over everyone so she could hide her ace in the hole. Therefore, Lord Marvel instructed Quasar to hunt down the Avatar of Death, which possessed anomalous properties. To achieve this, Quasar had assembled their best forces, the Revengers, the alter egos of the Avengers who could not be killed. Back on Nowhere, Thanos, who had begun to appear calm, was once again experiencing constant, sudden seizures. Major Victory sensed that this was connected to the war raging in the Fault, which was instantly disrupting the Mad Titan's physical state. Additionally, Mantis and Cosmo reported that they could no longer access Thanos' mind, as if he had shut the door to his own thoughts. As their leader, Star-Lord simply stood by, observing Thanos intently, a stance that infuriated Major Victory, who was deeply concerned about the war raging at the Fault. Major Victory urged Star-Lord to take immediate action by fighting the invaders on the front lines, but he refused, as the cunning Peter Quill had a different plan to counter them. Star-Lord realized that the battle taking place at the Fault was connected to what Quasar had reported to the Galactic Council, and it sounded terrifying. Rocket confirmed this as they were facing beings from a universe that didn't understand the concept of death. Star-Lord then states that this universe is called the Cancerverse, just as Moondragon had thought when she entered Thanos' mind. Star-Lord now realizes that this universe is seeking a new home by attempting to invade theirs. Therefore, Star-Lord has another plan, which Moondragon deems insane when she reads his mind. Amid this enigmatic moment, Thanos suddenly speaks up, saying they must give those creatures what they're seeking, himself. Hearing this, Star-Lord doesn't argue at all because he agrees with Thanos' statement. At the same time, the Nova Corps starship Resolute Duty, currently at the mouth of the fault, is in utter chaos because their hull has been destroyed by creatures from the Cancerverse. Irani herself reports that Deck 6 has also sustained damage, leaving them overwhelmed there. Like Irani, Namorita and Robbie Ryder are facing the same situation, so Namorita asks the World Mind to contact Nova for assistance. However, the World Mind couldn't contact Nova or Quasar at all, leading it to believe something terrible was happening to them at that moment. Before it could finish speaking, Nova and Quasar suddenly appeared to help Namorita and Robbie Ryder. Nova stated he wouldn't leave his brother and girlfriend stranded there. They eventually teamed up to fight the monsters, with the Ryder brothers fighting side by side once more. Namorita looked overjoyed to see her lover arrive, as did World Mind, who also expressed delight at Quasar's arrival. Amid this hopeful moment, they were suddenly attacked by the Revengers, who had already arrived on the scene. Without warning, the Revengers launched a sudden attack, catching Nova and the others off guard since they were completely unprepared. With full force, Thor immediately swung Mjolnir at Quasar, who could only block the blow with his bare hands. This served as a clear warning to them that they were facing no ordinary monsters, as the Revengers possessed truly insane power at that moment. In the midst of that sudden battle, the Cancerverse version of Iron Man stated that he had detected an anomaly through the vibrations of Yat-Soteric. Therefore, Captain America immediately ordered Giant Man to capture that anomaly, which was none other than Namorita. At that moment, Nova could only watch as his beloved was taken by the Revengers, as he was trapped in the grip of a Cancerverse monster. After capturing Namorita, the Revengers simply left, abandoning Nova and the others without further resistance. The defeat felt especially crushing because Nova had lost his beloved Namorita yet again. Meanwhile, at the Continuum Cortex Nowhere, Thanos appears to be taking control of the situation, as he and the others prepare to cross over to the Cancerverse to find the root of this problem. Gamora says they've prepared guards to watch over Thanos, but the Mad Titan flatly refuses. Moondragon also speaks up, saying she disagrees with the plan, which makes Thanos angry and growl at her. Fortunately, Star-Lord is there to calm Thanos down with a simple question about the journey they're about to undertake. While the Guardians set off with Thanos toward the Cancerverse, Major Victory noted that the others would soon join the battle on the front lines alongside Luminol. As he wished them good luck, someone suddenly remarked, "Luck will have no bearing on this." It turned out to be Drax, Thanos' natural enemy. Fully suited and armed to the teeth, Drax declares that Thanos won't leave without his supervision. Hearing this, Thanos isn't the least bit angry. Instead, he thanks Drax for trying so hard to kill him. Coldly and ruthlessly, Drax simply replies that it will happen later. After preparing everything, the Guardians of the Galaxy then entered the Cancerverse to settle the great battle, bringing their ace in the hole, Thanos. Upon arriving there, they were visibly shocked by the immense aura of destruction, which made Cosmo tremble slightly. As Star-Lord was directing his friends, Thanos suddenly collapsed, as if he'd just been bombarded with attacks. This happened because Thanos was exposed to an overwhelming surge of life, a stark contrast to his role as the Avatar of Death. Slowly but surely, the Mad Titan's consciousness began to fade, leaving Mantis at a loss for what to do. Drawing her sword, Gamora urged Mantis to snap Thanos out of it immediately, as their host had arrived to greet them with furious hostility. After being nearly wiped out by the Revengers' forces, Nova and the others' resistance didn't end there. The monsters from the Cancerverse continued to attack Nova indiscriminately as he held the line alongside Quasar on the front lines of the Fault, aided by World Mind, who kept warning them of enemy attacks. As the AI of the Nova Corps, World Mind noticed that Nova didn't seem to be paying attention to what it was saying. Therefore, World Mind gave Nova a gentle reprimand, to which Nova immediately admitted he was following its instructions. However, World Mind knew Nova's mind was elsewhere, because his lover Namorita had been captured by the Revengers. Filled with frustration, Nova struck one of the monsters hard while insisting his mind was completely focused and telling World Mind not to worry about him. Amid the increasingly intense battle, Quasar took a moment to chat with Nova, telling him that this fight made the Annihilation War seem like nothing. Hearing this, Nova naturally agreed, as their attacks were barely having any effect on the Cancerverse creatures. Even the assistance from several spaceships from various kingdoms was struggling to handle the indestructible creature. Therefore, Quasar and Nova immediately headed to one of the Inhuman royal family's spaceships to help Triton and his forces. When Nova arrived at the spaceship, he immediately asked Triton about Queen Medusa's whereabouts. While firing at the monster, Triton told Nova that his cousin, Gorgon, had evacuated Queen Medusa even though she had refused. As Triton was busy speaking to Nova, Quasar, who was at that moment fending off the Cancerverse creature's attacks, warned Triton because he saw something approaching them rapidly. Before anyone could react, one of the Cancerverse creatures was suddenly split in two. It turned out the Silver Surfer had now joined the battle. Seeing the cosmic being's arrival, Nova asked the Silver Surfer if he was on their side. Calmly, the Silver Surfer explained that he had come as a messenger, as the cosmic abstracts were now intervening to deal with the Cancerverse creatures. Meanwhile, in the Cancerverse, the battle between the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Defenders finally erupted, even though Thanos was still incapacitated due to the powerful aura of immortality there. To minimize the danger, Star-Lord asked Cosmo to shut down the Defenders' minds so they couldn't send warning signals to one another. Star-Lord also gave the Guardians a brief window to take down the relentless undead forces. Using her telepathic powers, Mantis scrambled the mind of the sorcerer Doctor Strange before he could cast his spell. After that, Mantis delivered a powerful kick to Doctor Strange's face, knocking him to the ground. Meanwhile, Star-Lord could only fire his weapon at Hellcat while saying, "Bad kitty." Like Star-Lord, Rocket Raccoon could only rely on his weapon when facing Nighthawk, whom he called Pluck Face. As a close-range fighter, Gamora was seen enjoying a sword duel with one of the Asgardian Royal Guard's Valkyrie. The attacks Valkyrie launched one after another failed to injure Gamora at all, so she mocked her by saying, "You fight like a girl." After dodging that aimless attack, Gamora then stabs Valkyrie in the heart with her sword while asserting that she is the most dangerous woman in the entire galaxy. Meanwhile, the Cancerverse version of Namor is seen landing a hard punch to Drax the Destroyer's face. However, the punch has absolutely no effect on Drax and instead ignites a fire of rage within him. As it turned out, Drax had previously given Namor an opening to strike him, but Namor missed and instead made Drax think he was toying with him. After charging his punch with the fire of rage, Drax unleashed it with all his might, shattering Namor's right arm as he said, "I am not playing. I am destroying." Unlike the others, Cosmo used only her telepathic powers to fight the Defenders' strongest member, Hulk, who was 10 times her size. In the blink of an eye, Cosmo managed to put the green giant engulfed in flames of rage to sleep without the slightest difficulty. According to her, this method wasn't too painful because Cosmo simply had to enter Hulk's mind and cause an instant stroke. After slaughtering the Defenders, Rocket looked very smug, saying that they were indeed a team not to be underestimated. However, Cosmo immediately told Rocket to shut up because it turned out their fight wasn't over yet. In the midst of that almost triumphant moment, Cosmo asked Rocket to look at a bitter truth, showing that the creatures of the Cancerverse know no death. Apparently, the Defenders were slowly rising again in forms far more terrifying than before. Nighthawk explained that their universe had a unique arrangement where they lived their lives differently. They knew nothing of death, allowing them to experience new things that literally never ended. However, Hellcat looked extremely uneasy because she sensed something about someone the Guardians had brought along, Thanos. Thanos began to stir after having been unconscious, emanating a terrifying aura that frightened the Cancerverse creatures. Without a word, Thanos glared at them and fired the cosmic energy of death, which had been entrusted to him, through his hands and both eyes. In the blink of an eye, the Defenders' forces were obliterated down to their very bones, leaving them unable to rise again. After killing them all, Thanos looked exhausted and remarked that he struggled to maintain his mental composure in that universe. Yet despite this weakness, Thanos managed to inflict permanent death upon the Cancerverse creatures, making him a lethal weapon on the Guardians of the Galaxy's side. However, Thanos seemed annoyed at Star-Lord, who appeared surprisingly relaxed as the leader of the Guardians, having prepared no strategy whatsoever for the task ahead. Casually, Star-Lord roasted Thanos by saying he was one of the worst things to ever happen to their universe. Yet behind those words, Star-Lord also notes that he's currently just a figurehead, since the star of their mission this time is Thanos. Hearing this, Thanos isn't the least bit proud, knowing Star-Lord is merely feigning ignorance and actually understands the situation. Thanos' remark leaves Star-Lord slightly embarrassed, and he refuses to accept the praise. During their journey, Rocket noticed something. He felt that Thanos was growing stronger over time. Mantis confirmed this, saying that Thanos could now stabilize his mind quickly, and Cosmo added that the more stable Thanos' mind became, the harder it would be to read. This raised suspicions in Drax, who is Thanos' natural enemy. Although they all survived the Defenders' attack, Drax told Gamora that he was suspicious of Thanos because he was growing stronger, and they didn't know what the demon was capable of. After walking for quite some time, Cosmo suddenly sensed the presence of something neither alive nor dead approaching them. It turned out to be the aura of Vision, who is a robot, so it's impossible to tell whether he's alive or dead. Calmly, Vision greeted them all while stating that he had no hostile intentions toward them. Nevertheless, Rocket kept his gun pointed because he remained suspicious of the robot from the Cancerverse. Normal space. Location unknown. Iron Man and Ms. Marvel are seen dragging Major Victory, who is unconscious. As they're dragging him, Major Victory suddenly wakes up and fights back against them both. At that moment, Major Victory looks completely bewildered because he doesn't recognize the two people who've brought him to who knows where. Amidst this confusion, Lord Marvel suddenly arrives and immediately knocks Major Victory unconscious. He appears annoyed at Ms. Marvel and Iron Man for failing to handle the situation properly. Quickly, Ms. Marvel apologizes to Lord Marvel, admitting they had underestimated Major Victory's strength. Upon seeing Major Victory for the first time, Lord Marvel didn't recognize him at all and asked the two of them about him. With great politeness, Iron Man explained that Major Victory was one of the Guardians of the Galaxy who had been fighting on the front lines against the enemy. They had also detected Major Victory as an anomaly because they sensed a yotsoteric vibration emanating from within him, so they brought him in for detention. Lord Marvel then examined Major Victory more closely and identified him as a temporal anomaly from the future, which meant he didn't fall into the category of an avatar of death. Nevertheless, Lord Marvel still ordered them to detain Major Victory along with the others in the same room as Namorita. When Major Victory regained consciousness, he greeted everyone, and Namorita was the first to greet him. They then introduced themselves to one another, and Major Victory asked Namorita why they were called anomalies and what the Cancerverse creatures wanted from them. Namorita explained that they were considered anomalies not originating from this space-time, which is why the Revengers were sent to abduct them. Behind this abduction, Namorita was certain that the Cancerverse creatures were searching for something totemic and deemed important. They needed this object to perform a ritual known as a necropsy. However, no one knew what a necropsy was, so they couldn't draw any conclusions at that moment. In the middle of the conversation, Major Victory then asked Namorita if she knew where they were at that moment, but Namorita remained silent because she didn't know either. Apparently, they were inside a spaceship that was speeding through space. Meanwhile, on the front lines of the fault, Galactus and the other cosmic abstracts were busy fighting to hold back the endless stream of Cancerverse creatures. Seeing the cosmic abstracts enter their battlefield, Quasar now realized that the war they were facing was no ordinary war. Hearing this, Nova shared Quasar's thoughts because he had never witnessed such an event before. Nova also looked extremely surprised by the size of these cosmic beings, causing him to wonder if they could even see him, being so small. With great wisdom, the Silver Surfer told Nova that the cosmic abstracts knew more than Richard Rider did. The Silver Surfer added that they also knew what was at stake in this war, the fate of the universe itself, according to Quasar. However, the Silver Surfer explained to Quasar that more than just one universe was at stake. The Silver Surfer also reminded Quasar that he should know this, since he was connected to the creators through the quantum band he wore. According to Silver Surfer, they were facing beings who had both destroyed and consumed an entire universe and were now attempting to attack their own. Like parasites, The inhabitants of the Cancerverse bring new rules designed to overturn the fundamental laws of all existing universes, including their own. As a result, the beings from the Cancerverse are capable of rewriting reality, where life and death, as well as presence and absence, can be easily altered. While the Silver Surfer was busy explaining to Quasar, Nova suddenly discovered something so shocking that he immediately alerted them both. A face far larger than a cosmic abstract was seen trying to break through the vast portal stretching across the fault. The creature was so massive that Nova and Quasar couldn't even see it with the naked eye, but this wasn't the case for the Silver Surfer. With wide eyes, the Silver Surfer looked utterly shocked by what he was seeing. It turned out that the massive creature was the Galactus engine, the deadliest weapon from the Cancerverse, sent to invade the main universe. The resistance from Nova and the others would grow even more difficult, as a being capable of defeating a cosmic abstract had entered the battlefield and was poised to turn the tide of the war. Meanwhile, on the front lines of the Fault, Nova, who was fighting alongside Aegis at the time, looked concerned at the sight of the Galactus engine. While stabbing one of the Cancerverse creatures, Nova tried to contact Quasar, despite the extremely poor communication signal, to ask about the movements of the skull-faced giant. Since Quasar was fighting near the Galactus engine alongside the Silver Surfer at the time, he immediately informed Nova that the colossal creature wasn't making any moves. However, the Silver Surfer identified it as the Cancerverse's most powerful weapon, known as the Devourer of Worlds. They had succeeded in transforming Galactus into a deadly weapon that no one could match. Fortunately, the Galactus engine hadn't made any moves yet, aside from the cosmic abstracts who continued to attack the skull-faced giant. Nevertheless, Silver Surfer urged Quasar to remain vigilant because they didn't know the scale of the battle, given that the cosmic abstracts had intervened there. For the time being, the ongoing battle had already surpassed human comprehension, as they themselves couldn't feel any of its effects. This was different from the cosmic abstracts, who fully understood the battle's impact because they were cosmic beings who knew everything. After hearing Silver Surfer's explanation, Quasar himself didn't understand, prompting him to ask again. In a calm tone, Silver Surfer sarcastically remarked that he didn't understand Quasar's question either, since he thought he'd already explained everything to him. Just like Quasar, Nova, who was also listening to the Silver Surfer's explanation, didn't understand what he was saying. To make sense of the Silver Surfer's explanation, Nova asked the World Mind to analyze the battle. However, Nova, who was standing right in front of Aegis's head at the time, was left stunned when the cosmic being's head suddenly exploded after being attacked by a creature from the Cancerverse. Before he could even grasp the nature of the war, Nova now had to witness a truly shocking event. They had lost one of the cosmic abstracts. The incident unfolded so rapidly that Nova could not react in any way other than being flung a considerable distance away. In that brief moment, the World Mind immediately warned Nova, who was still conscious, to move away immediately as it sensed a shockwave of psionic energy that his helmet would be unable to withstand. Before he could finish his sentence, the shockwave World Mind had sensed suddenly exploded with tremendous force. Since the explosion occurred unpredictably, Nova could only endure the heat of the psionic energy slowly enveloping his body, eventually leading him into unconsciousness. Meanwhile, in the Cancerverse, Vision led the Guardians alongside Thanos to Titan, the birthplace of the Mad Titan. However, unlike the main universe, the planet Titan in the Cancerverse has transformed into the heart of the machine resistance. The place has become a fortress, serving as the last line of defense for Vision and his friends, so they will protect the planet at all costs. But in the midst of this serious moment, Rocket mocked Vision's statement by saying they should delegate the janitorial work there to outsiders, prompting Mantis to tell him to shut up. Vision also explains that when the Guardians cross the fault, they instantly become anomalies detectable by any creature in the Cancerverse. That's why the Defenders welcomed them the moment they set foot in that universe. However, this doesn't apply on Titan, because the planet is shrouded in a protective barrier that masks their presence. Thus, the Guardians and Thanos can carry out their work without being disturbed by anyone. But before that, Star-Lord is still confused by the concept of machine resistance, so he asks Vision to learn more. Vision also explained that when the Guardians crossed the fault, they instantly became anomalies that were immediately detectable to any creature in the Cancerverse. That's why the Defenders welcomed them the moment they set foot in that universe. However, this doesn't apply on Titan, as the planet is shrouded in a protective barrier that will conceal their presence. Thus, the Guardians and Thanos can carry out their work without being disturbed by anyone. But before that, Star-Lord is still confused by the concept of machine resistance, so he asks Vision to learn more. Vision explained that the only beings capable of withstanding the touch of the many-angled ones are machines with sentience, such as Herbie, M11, Jocasta, Machine Man, and himself. Mantis added that these machines possess resistance to organic entropy, a claim Vision confirmed. Star-Lord then concluded by saying that robots aren't truly alive, but his conclusion was rejected by Vision, who didn't want to argue with him about AI at that moment. Vision preferred to describe AI like himself as existing between life and death, making them more neutral. Hearing this, Thanos looked quite surprised because the shattered natural order in that universe surpassed anything he had ever achieved in his own universe. Human life, so precious, had been defeated by robots capable of withstanding the disease engulfing the entire universe. Therefore, Thanos concluded that life in that universe had grown stronger because it had been empowered and enhanced, but this was quickly refuted by Vision, as the true fact was that death had been killed in that universe. To learn more about this issue, Thanos asked Vision to explain why all of this could happen. Vision then led Thanos and the others into a room inhabited by an AI known to Thanos, Isaac. Since in the main universe Isaac was programmed to recognize Thanos' voice, the Mad Titan asked Isaac if he recognized him. Upon hearing that familiar voice, Isaac quickly recognized Thanos and stated that he had anticipated the Mad Titan's question and prepared an autobiography for him. However, Rocket looked confused upon hearing the name Isaac, so he asked Gamora what it meant. Without hesitation, Gamora replied that Isaac stood for Integral Synaptic Anti-Anionic Computer, which operated the Titan. While Thanos was busy with Isaac, Drax suddenly whispered to Star-Lord, hoping he'd get angry seeing Thanos take control of the situation there. However, Star-Lord didn't want to make a fuss at all, telling Drax to let Thanos, who was a specialist in that field, do his work. Hearing that response, Drax immediately called Star-Lord an idiot, who didn't realize what Thanos was actually doing. Drax felt that Thanos was going to destroy a universe that couldn't die, and was also certain that Thanos wouldn't stop there. Seeing Drax start to get aggressive, Star-Lord tried to calm the destroyer down, reminding him to stay composed since they were in a different situation at that moment. However, Drax didn't care at all about Star-Lord's words, whom he considered a fool because he knew who Thanos really was. To calm Drax down, Star-Lord said he would think of a way to stop Thanos, but Drax still looked angry because he felt Star-Lord was underestimating him. Calmly, Star-Lord said that Drax could indeed stop Thanos, but he still refused Drax's request to eliminate the Mad Titan right then and there. Meanwhile, Thanos appeared deeply focused on analyzing the data presented by Isaac. When Gamora asked him what he had found, Thanos replied that he had spotted an unexpected symmetry named Mar-Vell. Speaking of Mar-Vell, Lord Mar-Vell is currently seen studying the main universe from the wreckage of Thanos' sanctuary. Together with Quasar from the Cancerverse, they observe what happened to Mar-Vell in the main universe, who met a fate nearly identical to Lord Mar-Vell's. Quasar explains that the difference between the two lies in the pessimistic nature of the main universe's Mar-Vell, who simply let himself die without seeking a way to avoid that fate. Their deaths both had a profound impact on the superheroes who accompanied Marvel in his final days. Marvel was deeply loved by everyone, even his enemies admired him. Quasar also noted that the Marvel from this universe died of cancer, just as Lord Marvel from the Cancerverse did. When the diagnosis came, every hero sought a way to heal Lord Marvel, from the highest-ranking scientists to the sorcerers who also stepped in. Just like Lord Marvel, his counterpart from the main universe also faced obstacles in his healing due to the effects of the Niga bands forged by the Kree, which were the source of his power. Realizing this, the heroes eventually gave up and let Marvel go forever as a noble and precious tribute. Quasar noted that the heroes were more preoccupied with mourning than with finding another way to save the protector of the universe. Back in the Cancerverse. Thanos now witnesses events that are the exact opposite of what he saw with Quasar and Lord Marvel in the main universe. He discovers that the chthonic entity from that universe has spread its unspeakable influence. As a result, Lord Marvel's condition is worsening, causing stress among his friends and everyone in the world who loves him. They are all experiencing a phenomenon known as empathic trauma due to their deep affection for Lord Marvel. As this influence began to spread to everyone, a solution was offered by the chthonic entity. Thanos then explained that something emerging from the cosmic shadows signaled that Marvel, who was on the brink of death, had grasped a simple truth. With a piercing gaze, Thanos stated with conviction that he had discovered a simple phrase: "Even death may die." After hearing Thanos' explanation, Mantis felt that it sounded utterly absurd because she wasn't convinced that Marvel would bring such a thing into the universe he loved and protected. Like Mantis, Gamora shared the same opinion because she was certain that even though Marvel was dying and terrified, he wouldn't want to commit such a heinous act. However, the Mad Titan had anticipated their objections, noting that Marvel also had many friends by his side who might prevent him from doing so. Nevertheless, none of that was enough to stop Lord Marvel from committing such a heinous act, as the influence of the chthonic god had spread so extensively throughout that universe, and even surpassed their own. That influence could easily turn a mistake into truth in the blink of an eye. To learn more, Thanos then asked Isaac to replay the recording of the moment when Lord Marvel was still on his deathbed, surrounded by his friends. Lord Marvel asked his companions not to grieve, even though Captain America felt that this moment felt so unfair. Nevertheless, Lord Marvel assured them that hope was not lost, even though they had tried every possible means. Although brilliant scientists like Reed and Tony had sought various ways to cure Lord Marvel, they still couldn't find a solution, because science also has its limits. Just like the scientists, the greatest sorcerers like Wanda and Doctor Strange also threw in the towel regarding Lord Marvel's situation, even though they were only dealing with cancer. In the midst of that moment of utter despair, Lord Marvel said that life could keep him alive. Therefore, he asked all his friends to hold his hand so that he could share the future that looked so beautiful to him. Shortly after, a light suddenly shone, causing the recording to stop. In disbelief, the Guardians looked utterly shocked upon learning the true nature of the recording. To explain what had actually happened, Vision said that after Lord Marvel had transformed his closest allies, a ritual was finally performed. Many parties tried to stop the ritual, known as the necropsy, including Vision and the others. The necropsy ritual sacrificed Death's avatar, thereby obliterating Death herself. This also triggered the emergence of the many-angled ones into their plane of existence, which was the hidden consequence of that action. Just as Vision finished explaining, Drax suddenly interrupted with arguments meant to divide them, but fortunately, Star-Lord immediately told him to be quiet. To learn more, Star-Lord then asked Isaac to explain what the many-angled ones were, since he had never heard of them before. Isaac explained to Star-Lord that the many-angled ones are cosmic entities inhabiting the space between universes, and many believe them to be echoes of memories that became the nightmares of the first demons. Since Isaac's explanation was so long and detailed, Thanos finally cut the AI off by asking where the necropsy ritual was held. Briefly, Isaac then replied that the necropsy ritual was performed aboard a spaceship that served as the fortress of the universe's avatar of death. Meanwhile, Lord Marvel was seen casually chatting with Iron Man about the search for the Avatar of Death. Iron Man stated that the search for the Avatar of Death was still ongoing and awaiting Lord Marvel's investigation, though he doubted whether the anomalies they had detected truly met Lord Marvel's criteria. In a firm tone, Lord Marvel declared that they could not perform the necropsy unless they found the true Avatar of Death, and ordered Iron Man not to test his patience. In the middle of their conversation, Scarlet Witch suddenly arrives to inform the Undying Lord that an incident has occurred on their side some time ago. The Scarlet Witch explains that they lost contact with the Defenders after encountering something, and they also found traces of anomalies there. The news left Lord Marvel speechless for a moment, as he was quite surprised to hear it. The news was also good news for Namorita and Captain Major, as they realized their side had already taken further action. Therefore, the Scarlet Witch asked Lord Marvel for permission to take several members of the Revengers to investigate the area. Without hesitation, Lord Marvel approved the Scarlet Witch's request, which made Iron Man jealous because he felt that Wanda was trying to become Lord Marvel's favorite. Calmly, the Scarlet Witch explained that she simply wanted to carry out the task that Iron Man should have been doing. The Scarlet Witch then called out several names, Captain America, Hawkeye, the Wasp, and War Machine, to join her. Meanwhile, on the front lines of the Fault, Quasar stood tall, gazing up at the night sky filled with cosmic energy from the ongoing battle. Quasar now realized that the presence of the Galactus engine could obliterate anything in its path, including the cosmic abstracts, who are now also in danger because of it. Just as Quasar was about to utter a pessimistic remark, Queen Medusa spoke up with an optimistic statement, insisting they must not retreat from the battle. Queen Medusa made the statement because the Kree Stellar Empire had long endured the toxic otherness attempting to infiltrate their universe. Gorgon, as the Queen's loyal follower, supported this assertion. However, Blaster seemed displeased with those words because he felt that Queen Medusa was a new ruler. Blastar's remark immediately provoked Gorgon's anger, as he could not tolerate the Queen being disrespected in such a manner. In that tense moment, Gladiator suddenly arrived to intervene between the two before their fight could erupt. Since they wouldn't stop, a firm voice emerged to halt them both. It turned out to be Nova, who had survived the psionic energy shockwave from the Aegis's body. Nova told them to learn from their past mistakes and sarcastically urged them to continue the fight while their universe slowly headed toward destruction. Nova explained that they wouldn't be able to kill the creatures from the Cancerverse because they would simply come back to life as before. Therefore, Nova told them to find a smarter solution to deal with the Cancerverse creatures if they wanted to survive. Furthermore, Nova felt that this wasn't just a simple invasion, as their attack seemed aimed at establishing a foothold for a larger plan. After hearing this explanation, Quasar shared the same opinion, given that the enemy had captured certain individuals for reasons unknown to them. Although no one knew the true reason behind the enemy's abductions, Nova knew the location of the captives. Nova then recounted that he was near one of the shattered cosmic abstracts, Aegis, and detected a pulse of psychometric energy emanating from it. This allowed Nova to sense a communication link the cosmic entity was trying to establish, even as it lay dying. In that moment, Nova received cosmic awareness from Aegis and saw a quantum bond he had previously formed with Namorita, his lover. Nova then explained that Namorita was one of the people who had been abducted, so now he knew where she was. Currently, the prisoner's location is far from the front lines, so he suggested sending only specific individuals on this rescue mission since they still need manpower at the front lines. Nova then selected a few people for this mission, which he would carry out quickly and efficiently. He then named several major figures, Quasar, Beta Ray Bill, Gladiator Silver Surfer, and Ronan, to help him rescue the prisoners. Before departing, Nova asked the World Mind to calculate the parameters needed for the Stargate to transport the 6 of them directly to the enemy's front door. Nova didn't want the enemy to quickly detect their presence, so he asked the World Mind to handle this. Quickly, the World Mind performed the calculations and determined that the Stargate could transport them undetected directly to the front of the enemy's spaceship. While waiting for departure, Quasar remarked that he was very proud of the leadership qualities Nova had developed as a result of the events of the past few years, while Nova responded by saying that the War of Annihilation had taught him that they must not be complacent, or they would lose. Quasar noted that Richard had matured into a more responsible individual through a long and arduous journey. Back in the Cancerverse Titan, Thanos sees a way to disrupt the necropsy ritual by reversing it. Vision had realized this long ago, but they were unable to do it because they lacked the Avatar of Death. Without hesitation, Thanos says they're in luck because he can help them. However, Vision pointed out that transporting Thanos to the location where the necropsy ritual was taking place would be a challenge for them. To send Thanos there undetected, Vision explained that it would require several hours of preparation. In that critical situation, Star-Lord noted that they didn't have much time, so he asked Vision to find a better alternative. However, a conflict between Thanos and Drax slowly emerged because Thanos began to confront Drax, who had been muttering threats behind his back. Since Thanos was about to undertake a major task, he admitted to Drax that he didn't want to waste time on his natural enemy. Therefore, Thanos challenged Drax to speak directly to him, which enraged Drax and caused him to point his massive weapon at Thanos' face. A fight broke out between the two, with Drax immediately firing his weapon at Thanos while asserting that he had nothing to say to him. As the leader, Star-Lord tried to stop Drax's reckless actions, which had already destroyed part of the room. But unfortunately, Drax completely ignored Star-Lord's orders and continued firing at Thanos. So, Star-Lord asked Cosmo and Mantis to separate the two, but it was in vain, because their minds were in a state of intense conflict. Amid the chaos, Rocket even found the time to offer Star-Lord help in blowing up Drax's head, a target he'd been eyeing for a long time. Seeing that telepathy couldn't stop them, Gamora appeared ready to intervene and separate the two sworn enemies. However, her action came too late because Drax played the ace up his sleeve, a weapon he'd been saving to destroy Thanos. While Thanos was off guard, taunting him, Drax quickly attached a device to Thanos' chest in hopes of destroying the Mad Titan. The device was an antimatter bomb that exploded instantly, obliterating Thanos completely, down to the atomic level. Drax looked extremely pleased that he had succeeded in killing his natural enemy, even though the Guardians were certainly not happy with Drax's foolish act. The universe gathered its greatest champions, believing strength and unity would be enough to stop the coming extinction. But sometimes, even the mightiest heroes can misunderstand the true nature of the threat they face. What the Thanos Imperative begins to show us is a terrifying idea: that survival is not always about defeating an enemy, but understanding the balance that holds reality together. By the end of this chapter, the cosmic heroes make a choice meant to save the universe. Yet that very decision sends shockwaves across existence and changes the fate of the cosmos forever. If removing one being could save billions of lives, would you make that choice? Even if you weren't sure it was the right one? Tomorrow, in Part 2, everything changes, as the truth behind the invasion is finally revealed, and the universe discovers why this war was never meant to be won without a certain Mad Titan. If you enjoyed this cosmic journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video so we can continue exploring Marvel's greatest stories together here on Panelix. Thank you for watching, and may you have a wonderful day.